This lesson is about putting everything together we've learned over the past 2 days. We've talked about 5 new rules of exponents. Those rules range from 0 to negative to what happens when we're multiplying. So we have 5 rules. Let's review them quickly. The first one was 0 exponents, and this was when you have any number, letter, phrase, in parentheses, raised to the 0 power, it's always going to be 1. The second one is negative exponents, and that's when you have the negative in that tiny number, the small superscript. And that means that you're going to take that and take the reciprocal to make it positive. So if it's in the numerator, it goes to the denominator and becomes positive like so. Or if it started in the denominator, it goes up to the top where it would then become positive. The next one is product of powers, which means that you have 2 numbers being multiplied that have the same base, so 2 or x or something. In this example, the base is x. And you add the exponent, so it would mean that you take that a and add b to it, whatever they are. Power of a power means that you have a value inside parentheses and it's being raised to another power. And in that case, you multiply them. So if you're distributing and you multiply, if it's just without parentheses, then you add. The last one is power of a product, and that means if you have 2 numbers or 3 numbers being multiplied within parentheses and an exponent on the outside, you distribute that in order for each value to get the exponent, and they stay being multiplied. Oh, I'm sorry, this is supposed to be a y. They stay being multiplied. Now, you can take these rules and combine them. You can do more than just the product of powers. You can do more than just a negative exponent. The first one we're going to do is a review. If you have this -2 exponent in the denominator, you're going to bring it up to the top like it had shown before. So this 1 kind of goes away, or you can keep it in the denominator. So you have -5 raised now to the +2 power. What you're going to do is when you type this into your calculator, you need to make sure these parentheses stay in there. So in your calculator, type parenthesis, -5, close your parenthesis, and raise it to the 2nd power. This will give you now a +25, and that is the correct answer. If you have a -25, it means you did not include that negative when raised it to the power. So what this means is you have -5 times -5. So +25 is your answer. 2 is also a review. So you have 4 squared times 4 to the -3. So it is a review, but notice that we have a negative. So what I want you to do is if we have the same base, we keep the base. Remember, you do not multiply it, it stays the same. But add 2 plus a -3. 2 plus a -3 gives you 4 to the -1 power. Since that is completely simplified by adding, we have to somehow get rid of that negative. So we're going to put this over 1 and bring it down to the denominator. So our final answer will be 1/4, or 4 to the 1st power. In example 3, we now have a power of a power, but both of them are negative. So if you think back to power of a power rule, it's where we have our value being raised to another power. And what we do is we multiply. What is -1 times -2? Our base stays the same, but when you multiply this, it becomes a +2. So a +2, those negatives are gone, and all we have to do is simplify. So you have 3 times 3, which is 9. It is not 6. Remember, it's not 3 times 2. It's 3 times 3. 3 times itself twice. Example 4 may seem a little bit confusing. If you think the answer is 1, you are almost right. If we had parentheses around that -a, yes, your answer is 1. But since we do not have that, you have to think of it as negative 1 times a to the 0 power. A to the 0 power is 1. We can't forget about that negative, so our answer is negative 1. In example 5, nothing can be simplified. There's no exponent on 2. X and y are not the same bases, but if you notice, x has a negative exponent. What we have done so far is just moved and had the reciprocal, so we would move what's on the top to the bottom and what's on the bottom to the top. In this instance, there's nothing on the bottom but a 1. So all you're going to do is you take that negative x to the third power and you move it to the denominator. You do not move the 2 or the y to the third because neither of them have a negative exponent. The only thing that moves is that x to the third power. This would be your final answer. The same goes for number 6. Notice how 3 does not have a negative exponent, so it's just going to stay where it's at. But this x to the negative 2 power says that this is the one that needs to move. It's in the wrong spot. So your 3 stays, but now you have x squared next to it. And that would be your final answer. Problem number 7 has 2 steps. You can do either of them first. What I like to do is I like to get rid of a negative. So since it's outside the parentheses, all of this is included with this negative 3. So how we get rid of it is we move everything that's within those parentheses. So here we have 1 over, because we take the reciprocal, 5b now to the third power, positive. If you think back to our 1 rule, power of a product, we have to distribute back in. So we would take this 3 and distribute it to the b and to the 5. So your final answer would look like 1 over 5 to the third b to the third. But remember, I told you that you have to simplify when you have anything raised to the second power or the third power. So we have to simplify this 5 to the third power. So in your calculators, you can do 5 to the third power. This is located above the division key if you have a TI-84. Or you can just write 5 times 5 times 5. Either way will give you the same answer. 5 to the third power is 125. We can't simplify b because we don't know what it is. So our final answer is 1 over 125b to the third. Number 8 looks crazy, but it's not. So think about what can you do with your negative exponents. You have y to the negative 4 and you have z to the negative 10. That negative says I need to take this and move it down. And I need to take this and move it up. So let's rewrite this. You should have 2x to the third power raised to the third power. The y has gone down, so we don't write that, but the z has come up, so z to the 10th power. In your denominator, we still have this x that we have not moved, and then y to the 4th. The next step you need to do is get rid of this power to a power. So you're going to distribute it to the 2 and to the 3. So remember, you multiply. So you have 2 to the third power, x to the 9, z to the 10th, all over x, y to the 4th. You have one more step because you have something raised to the third power. 2 to the third power is 8, x to the 9th, z to the 10th, all over x, y to the 4th. Now, if you notice, you have two x's here. That's what we're going to be learning in the future. So for right now, we leave them because we don't know what to do with them. So this would be your final answer. This next problem, what we have is that we have a fraction, but we also have times 7 to the 0 power. So what we're going to do is first figure out what is 7 to the 0 power. So if you remember, anything to the 0 power is 1. So guess what? We don't need this. So let's take a look, and the first thing we have is -2 as an exponent. Let's get rid of that. How we get rid of that is we take what it's attached to, meaning what's inside the parentheses, and we move it to the bottom. So we now have 1 in the numerator. We have 5 times our parenthesis 3x squared to now a positive 2. So if you remember, we take that positive 2 and distribute it in. So we would say we have 1 over 5 times 3 squared times x to the 4th because we multiply. We have to keep going and simplify where we have 3 squared, so you have 1 over 5 times 9 times x to the 4th. And the last thing we need to do, and I'm running out of space, is multiply 5 times 9, which 5 times 9 is 45. So this is your final answer. So what I want you to do is go through and do the in-class practice, take your quiz, and good luck.